So Gavin Newsom came out with this genius statement that since he's got a slowdown in the increase of homelessness in his home state, that he is really fighting the good fight. He's got by far the most homelessness of any state in the United States. It's over 180,000 people. I think it's like 187,000 people, an incredible number. So Gavin Newsom brags, hey, we've got a modest increase. GOP, Republicans just absolutely lay into him. Let's get into it. Here we go. Here's the tweet. This is in response to an article that we'll get to called Billions of Dollars Later, California's Homeless Crisis Persists Under Newsom. And here's what he wrote. California has dramatically showed and reduced the growth of homelessness, making more progress than a majority of other states. The nation as a whole and previous administrations. Well, but this is after you created the most homelessness in all of the land. Yeah, so you've got a good thing going? No. Any addition to California's homelessness is a massive loss because they've spent $24 billion, $27 billion. Who knows? Who cares? Who's counting? Not California. We're continuing to lead the charge in getting people off the streets and connected to care. Well, okay. All right. California had an increase of 3.1% in homelessness. United States had 18.1%. And that's because the books are already cooked. California's already got, over 50% of the homeless population in the entire United States. So bragging that their increase was less is kind of like the Biden administration saying, hey, we have really worked on inflation. It's coming way, way down. We've brought it down from here to here. But the problem is that inflation was 9.1% at its peak, which is some all-time high inflation in recent years. You jacked up the inflation and then you want to take credit when it comes down a little bit. Or in this case, you want to take credit when the homelessness keeps going, but just a little bit slower rate than some other areas. It's absolutely, fascinating to watch these political claims because, as we know, Gavin Newsom is going to run for president in 2028. Honestly, if we think anything else, I don't think so. And the homelessness that he has going on right now, that needs to be brought way down. And you can't do it because these are people. And we've talked about this. Until you involuntarily put people in mental institutions or put them in detox and treatment, involuntarily put them in detox and treatment, or put them in jail, those are your three options. And until you're doing that on a consistent basis and really getting at the root of homelessness, which is drugs and mental health care, it ain't housing. It's not housing because billions and billions and billions of dollars have been spent on housing, and California's homelessness has continued to go up. It's not going down. So until you get that squared away, then you're not doing that anytime soon. You don't have the resources for it. Plus, you don't have the political will to do it. Oh, that means that we have to go against our whole housing first concept, which is just get people into housing and they'll square their own lives away. That's not what's going on with the mental health care issues today and also the drugs that are being done, fentanyl being the big one. And then you got K2, synthetic weed. That is really screwing some people up. That Guatemalan that lit the homeless person on the subway in New York, that guy was on K2. You got some real situations going on. And in a big liberal state like California, just let anything go, particularly the big cities, San Francisco being one, LA. In those big cities, homelessness has just gotten wildly out of control, and you can't reel that back in because those are people. They're people. You can whack-a-mole them all day long by sweeping out their homeless encampments, but that doesn't solve the root cause. So Senator Brian Jones, he's California. With a $27 billion investment, Californians rightfully expect the homeless population to decrease. decrease. Any increase is simply unacceptable. And under Gavin Newsom, homelessness has skyrocketed nearly 40%. So all of that liberal crap policy has come back to roost, hasn't it? Because you can't make it go away. You got nut jobs on drugs, abusing drugs, living in the tents all over California, and you can't make them go away because they're people. You can't euthanize them like pets. Yeah. Newsom's attempt to claim victory on homelessness is a bold move for someone eyeing the presidency. Totally agreed. He should be ashamed of what he's done to our state, but instead, his pride blinds him. Well, I mean, he's got to come up with a way to spin this. And the way to spin this is literally, hey, look at this. California's numbers are down. I'm doing a damn good job. It's only up 3%. Yeah, but it's up 40% since you've been governor. So that means all of the money that you have spent, all $27 billion, what are you doing there? And that's where this whole notion, and that's where this whole concept of housing first, housing first does include outreach and some of these other things, but the major component is build housing. If we just had some more housing, we could really get this under control. No, it's that concept of if you build it, they will come. Meaning, if you build housing for homeless people, they will come to your state in droves. California, excellent example. Seattle, amazing example. Portland, beautiful example. How about Skid Row in Los Angeles? How about that? I mean, you got some real nut job stuff going on there, right? And you got the shooting in the mall, and you got the shooting in Skid Row. I mean, you just got some stuff going on that's like, what are we even doing here? So Newsom tries to spin this bad boy in such a manner that, it looks good. But bottom line is homelessness in California is still going up. Here is, let's take a look at this article here. This is an interesting one. I love this photo op where Gavin Newsom he's getting work done. He is single-handedly going to get rid of all the garbage that the homeless has left up against. What is that? Is that a sound wall for a freeway? Probably. That's just all tagged up and looks terrible. Meanwhile, you've got these big, beautiful trees here. Don't mind the trees. We're just going to get some hypodermic needles up off the ground, get, thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds of tons of garbage off the ground because we let homeless people live there. And under his leadership, homelessness has exploded over 40% in California. So if you think that he's doing a great job, yeah, vote for him, President of the United States. So this article basically, when asked by Post, it basically outlines, hey, maybe California isn't really getting done what Gavin Newsom claims. This year's federal count of Californians who lack housing neared 186,000. There's the number I was looking for. By far the most of any state and about 5,000 people higher than the previous year. Let's talk about that for 1 second. That's based on the pit count, where a bunch of people just kind of meander around and ask people, hey, are you homeless? Are you homeless? They take some data. We don't really know if those numbers are accurate. It's a best guess scenario, right? You don't really know because you could have all these people hiding down in the labyrinths of Las Vegas. And is anybody going to climb down there and figure out who's homeless? Nah, homeless is a wildly mobile set of people. They're living tents. You know what I mean? They here 1 minute, next minute, they leave a pile of belongings. I have shopping carts on my street here outside of my office all day long that are left with just a bunch of stuff that some homeless person, I got busy, doing some meth and going somewhere else. And they just left all their belongings, or they decided to take a bus back into Seattle. Bellevue wasn't working out. And so they just leave all their crap behind. Gavin Newsom began his governorship 6 years ago with many promises of decisive action on major issues, housing and homelessness. He pledged to appoint a homeless czar. He's now the homeless czar. He got $24 billion by 9 state agencies last spring that castigated Newsom's Interagency Council on Homelessness because they didn't really track how the money was spent. Well, we don't really know, but I'm sure it's working. Oh, it's not? It's increasing? So literally, Any increase at this point, given the amount of dollars that California has spent, is a huge loss. A huge loss. As the crisis continued, reporters questioned Newsom about having a czar who would cut through red tape and attack homelessness. Newsom snapped back, "You want to know who's the homeless czar? I'm the homeless czar in the state of California." All right, well then why does it keep going up? Yeah, interesting question. Some questions remain unanswered. While seemingly taking personal responsibility for combating homelessness, and despite the state auditor's criticism of his administration, Newsom has more recently blamed local governments for failing to spend state homelessness grants effectively, often threatening to cut off their money if they don't make a serious dent in the crisis. Here's the thing. You can't. It's not an issue you can sweep under the rug. These are human beings who have massive, massive sets of needs. They need to get off drugs. They need to detox. They need to get into a program that's going to put them on the straight and narrow and keep them there. They need to get medicated. They need to get evaluated for all the mental issues that they have, on top of all the drugs they're doing illegally on our streets. Now, certain percentage of the folks that are living homeless, they don't do drugs, but that percentage is tiny, tiny, tiny. So it doesn't, that segment of people I'm not even discussing, because I kind of feel like they'll figure it out on their own. They'll figure out something one way or the other. But the other people who are impacting society in general because they're pooping on the sidewalk, they're taking a whiz wherever, they're just doing drugs, they're stealing from the community, buying and selling stolen goods. You got human trafficking, you got sex trafficking, you got gangs involved, you got illegals involved. I mean, the list just keeps going on. And these are all known quantities within the homeless industrial complex. A few weeks after Parks issued his report, Newsom and legislators reached a deal to maintain homeless grants to local governments, but he reiterated demands that they do a better job. So why does Newsom want them to do a better job? Because it makes him look bad when the homeless numbers continue to go up. It makes him look bad when people can point to, hey, yo, Gav, 186,000 homeless people in California that we know of, maybe double that, and that's realistic. You know, maybe we call it 300,000. 300,000 homeless people in California. That seem about right? Who knows, right? Who knows? Well, if that's the case, then how can you be blaming local government for not spending the money? And what exactly do you want them to spend it on? Tell me. I'm listening. I'll listen. What do you want them to spend it on that's going to have an immediate, impact on how things really go? Yeah, you can sweep them all day long. You can clean up their garbage all day long, but then they just come right back and boom, we just do it all over again. Groundhog Day. What's happening on the streets has to be a top priority, Newsom said. People have to see and feel the progress and the change. And if they're not, I'm not interested in continuing the status quo. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Talks about failure. Talks about local officials clearly resent Newsom blame shifting, arguing that receiving only annual grants makes it difficult for them to establish long-term programs to lift homeless people from their plight and prevent more Californians from joining their ranks. Well, I mean, what you've got going on is you've got a bunch of liberal policy that isn't going to work. Housing first isn't going to work. Get them into housing. Just create more housing. This will do it. How's that working out for you? How much did homelessness go down when you gave all those homeless people housing? How'd that work out for you? Did it go down? By how much did California's numbers go down? How much? Oh, they didn't go down? They went up? Interesting. Okay. Anyway, so you've got local fighting state because Gavin Newsom wants to run for president and this is making him look bad. Period. Mic drop. Full stop. He can't go in. He can't run for president of the United States when all some jackass has to do on the Republican side is literally take a GoPro, Chop Chaz style. It could be a middle-aged real estate guy. Even he could handle that and just walk down one of the many, 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 many streets in Oakland or LA or San Francisco or Sacramento any of those, just walk down and just one endless homeless, just filth and needles everywhere and, all of that garbage, people just doing the fentanyl bends. Just show that. And then the byline's going to be, the highlight on the video is going to be, well, if you want this coming to your city, if you want this coming to your county, if you want this coming to your state near, in anytime soon, go ahead and vote for Gavin Newsom because he'll bring it to you. He brought it to California. Here's what that looks like. And people are going to go, oh, I don't know what they'll do, but I sure would. I mean, I'm doing it and I live in Seattle. Right? I mean, if Gavin Newsom runs, it's going to be a wild shit show. If Kamala Harris runs for California, oof, that could be entertaining. You could talk about the blind leading the blind. Oh, I'm sure that'll work out. But, for all the folks in California, I would not wish that upon you for 100 years. But for podcast content sake, tasty. Sign me up. Yeah, Kamala Harris, she's good. She'll really serve you well. Yeah, vote for her. Article ends by saying Newsom's governorship will end in 2 years, after which he will likely mount a campaign for president. It's certain that California's homelessness crisis will still be highly visible and a weapon for Newsom's opponents. And that's what I've said repeatedly, is that this is just going to be weaponized. Homelessness is going to be weaponized. Have things gotten better for you in California as a homeless person? No, I never see anybody come by to help us out. They sweep our stuff. I lost my mom's ashes last week. Can't find my driver's license. It's just terrible. You know what I mean? You're just going to see one thing after another like that. And none of those things are funny. But they'll be weaponized in such a way that it'll make it almost impossible for Newsom to get elected, because whether it's his fault or not, whether which way you blame, it's going to get tagged to Gruesome Newsom. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.